Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars video. This is going to be my review for the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 5. This one was called The Return of the Mandalorian, I believe, and yeah, that's exactly what this episode was about. I think we all expected an appearance from the Mandalorian in this episode, but I don't know if anyone quite expected that we would literally just get a full episode of the Mandalorian in the middle of the Book of Boba Fett. I thought, oh cool, they're just doing like an opening scene to reintroduce him, and then we'll see the Boba and him meet up maybe towards the end. Then after the first 5 minutes, it's like, okay, is he getting the first 10 minutes? After that, you're like, okay, is he getting half the episode? And it just kept going on and on until finally at the end, okay, Fennec shows up. But Boba and the Mandalorian still haven't, like, met in this episode, even though, okay, he's now on board, I suppose, with the plan. And we're sort of caught up, and I suppose the last two episodes can be the big kind of action set piece of Boba establishing himself and gaining control, defeating the Pikes, and so on. But, yeah, this episode accomplished a lot. Well, for one, we had so many questions, I suppose, after the Mandalorian Season 2, just with regards to where does Din go from here now that he doesn't have Grogu? What's going on with the Darksaber? In that it felt like what they were going to do was have Season 3 pick up straight away and immediately deal with, wait, Bo-Katan wants the Darksaber, but Din has it sort of almost by accident. He doesn't know the significance of it. We're going to have to deal with that straight away. So surely he's going to have to go to Mandalore, and that's where we're going. Instead, they seem to have resolved the sort of ending scene of The Mandalorian by basically saying, okay, off screen that happened. Bo-Katan sort of just let the Mandalorian walk away, and he goes back to doing bounty hunting. But along the way, he reunites with the Coven, I suppose, the remaining two Mandalorians who follow the way. So we have the armorer here, and then our Vizsla clan member, the kind of big, heavily armored guy who sort of saved him before. And they seem to be the last three left from this type of Mandalorian. Some really cool scenes here. The kind of, I suppose, butchers or kind of meat shop, whatever way you want to call it, opening scene with him getting the bounty. And you see he's using the Darksaber. I was wondering, like, is he going to pull this out or not? Because that would reveal a lot. But no, the Darksaber ends up being a very significant part of this episode, in that he has it, he is using it, and he's aware of how powerful it is, but he really does not know how to use it effectively, is what we see. And I like this. I like that even though he's a kind of skilled combatant, that it takes a level of, you know, training and dexterity to use a lightsaber effectively, and especially one like that, kind of an ancient lightsaber. He's kind of struggling with just the way it works, and it's interesting in that he's used to using, I suppose, bigger weaponry, heavy weaponry. He's kind of just struggling with just the effects of the lightsaber, that sort of gyroscopic effect of, like, there is a sort of weight to it because of that, and he seems to be struggling with it because it's like, it's weightless to a degree, but then when you start moving it, it kind of, the kind of physics of it, that was interesting to see. Like, he even injures himself with the Darksaber. And is sort of getting used to just how powerful it is. Because, like, he does that huge swing where he puts so much power into it to chop the guy in half and the table. And you always got the impression, like, he didn't need to put that much, like, strength into it. He could have just let the blade do the work. But he did it. He got the bounty. He said the line, you know, it could bring you in warm or cold. That was nice to see. Then we reveal that, like, we're on basically what effectively, at least to me, reads as like, it's like a halo ring. So that was cool. This giant sort of space station type thing. I'm not sure what the name on it or anything like that was. But, you know, he gets the bounty. He follows the secret paths back to where the other Mandalorians are. And it seems like this is his first time like finding them, because he reveals the Darksaber to them there. So I guess this is him tracking them down at the same time as he's doing the bounty. So there's a lot of kind of catching up to do here, where he like reveals that like he's accomplished his quest, he's given Grogu over to the Jedi, and he has claimed the Darksaber, and they go into the history of it here, which is significant because they reveal, of course, that it was a Mandalorian from the Vizsla clan who was also a Jedi, who was the one who made the Darksaber. So that guy feels that like he has a claim to it, hence why they have the fight for it later on. But the armorer, I think, was a really cool reintroduction as well, because she just knows what's going on, and she basically tells us more or less the history of what happened at the Night of 1,000 Tears, I think it is. And we get some visuals for just how heavy the Empire attack on Mandalore was, and how those who follow the way missed out. Like it was kind of skipped over. They managed to survive because they're on the moon Concordia, which is finally them sort of bringing all of the lore sort of into play, of like this was the stuff from the Mandalorian episodes of the Clone Wars, where it was revealed that the clans who wanted to do things in the warrior way aren't really associated with Mandalore as such anymore. And she also goes on to explain that Bo-Katan and that family line is what in their mind kind of corrupted Mandalore. Now, it's an interesting episode because it does also play into the whole, like, which path should Din take. He's following the way he's known for all this time, like the people who saved him effectively, by following the way. But he's also had some experience of realizing that, is it really that big of a deal if I take off my helmet? The other Mandalorians do it, and they seem like normal enough Mandalorians, and they're calling what we are a cult, but they're still like just as skilled, notable as us. And he's asking questions about Bo-Katan in terms of like, is she cool or not, basically. So I like that, in that you're not meant to know necessarily how to feel when the question gets asked right at the end of the episode. Have you ever removed your helmet, or has it ever been taken off? And he was sort of dreading this question being asked, because he has to admit that he has taken it off. And there's no discussion, no question really. It's just, you're going to have to leave. You can redeem yourself, but you have to do that in like the mines under Mandalore, which he says are gone. So it does at the very least open the door to the idea that he can get back in, and it maybe that's the path for the reason for him to go to Mandalore, if there's any hope for like redeeming it and kind of restoring it in some way. I feel that probably will be something that happens in season 3. The other setup is that he is still thinking about Grogu, in that when he's showing off some of his new equipment to the other two Mandalorians, they ask about the Beskar spear, and they reveal that something that I don't think many people had really considered is that they make all of their armor out of Beskar, and I suppose some stuff like, they reveal that the hilt of the Darksaber is made of Beskar as well. So they're willing to, but they specifically don't make like weaponry out of Beskar, specifically I suppose bladed weaponry, because it can cut through Beskar. So she kind of notes that like this is a pretty bad thing to exist, that people might now know that a Beskar blade can cut through Beskar armor, where the armor is what they're best known for. That shouldn't be a thing. So he does immediately hand over the spear to get it melted down, after revealing that, a Jedi gave it to him. So that was interesting, but he gets at least part of the spear made into armor for Grogu. He specifically sort of argues the point for Grogu, even though she explains to him that, if he is to train in the ways of the Force, like a Jedi, he is going to basically be getting rid of all attachments. They're not meant to have any attachments, yet you are clearly, attached to him. I don't think this is the way to do it, but she agrees to it. She makes it. We don't get to see what it is, but it's a relatively small little package, and I get Grogu is small. They did show sort of like almost like chainmail thing, so I think everyone's going for the idea that it's some sort of like chainmail armor type thing that will be sort of perfect for Grogu. That's why it's in such a small little package. So he is planning to go and visit Grogu, which is very intriguing in terms of season 3. I guess that means we're going to get more Luke. We're going to get to see Grogu again, because I can't see just they've made the armor. It's not going to go undelivered. We'll see how it goes when he actually does hand it over, I suppose. But he's also then, I suppose, going to want to go to Mandalore, and I guess will encounter Bo-Katan again, who's going to want the Darksaber. There's definitely a little bit of an arc being presented here of, is he going to try to, get better at using the Darksaber as well? Because when he recovers, the guy does challenge him for possession of the Darksaber. And the fight that they have is interesting because the guy basically loses. Din wins effectively because the guy feels he has like an ownership to the blade, and he hasn't necessarily been paying attention to what Din has been doing in the training. Din tries to use the Darksaber, but the guy effectively doesn't win the fight but claims the Darksaber. But then Din, fighting in his normal way, is able to defeat the other guy who is really struggling to use the Darksaber. So they're getting across that it's this valued weapon for the Mandalorians, but they don't necessarily know how to use it all that well. And it's more of a hindrance than a bonus unless you can use it properly. But I think they're setting up that Din is going to be planning to use it properly. So that's going to be cool to see as he gets better with it, just to see how much he can do with it. So there's that. After this, of course, he's sort of like effectively abandoned by his family, effectively, because they note that that's the opposite of the way, where they are attached to all of their fellow members. He has to, because he doesn't have a ship, because the Razor Crest has been destroyed, he has to use just, I suppose, civilian public transport to get back. And we get a fun scene as he just goes through the checkpoint, and it's like, you can't go on board this transport fully armored and weaponed. They focus specifically on the weapons. They're like, you can't have like ammunition on you or guns and knives. So he has to before he goes onto the ship, take off every single piece of weaponry that he has. And it's fun to just see him take out all the shells, the knife, and just everywhere that he has weapons. It takes a long time. Gives you the idea of how much setup is required to fully outfit him. But he even has to put the Darksaber in there. It's a fun moment of just like, I know everything that's in there, so I don't lose any of it. And this basically just brings him back to Tatooine, because he has, I suppose, contacted, what's her name, Peli, to procure him a new Razor Crest. Is the wording that I suppose he gives her. He wants the exact same ship again. She takes that as just get him a new ship, and it's revealed that she's found a partial N1 starfighter, so the Naboo starfighter. Really, really cool ship, really cool reference. One of my favorite starship designs in Star Wars. So happy that they're giving this to the Mandalorian as his sort of personal starship, that he's gone from having like a gunship where he's got lots of space and cargo capacity to this is more of a just personal transport. He's not going to have a lot of room to carry stuff, I suppose, on this. She did get rid of the droid, the astromech's port, so maybe there's a bit of space in the back. But there doesn't seem to be space for, like, if he captures someone to bring them back. But we'll see if there's anything special to the way it's constructed otherwise. And they spend actually quite an amount of time just going over the ship and talking about parts. And they even have a little side thing where they go over the Jawas and how they get the parts. And then, like, obviously they just steal them from people, and they get across that the final part that he needs, they just quickly stole from someone while they were like refueling, which is pretty crazy. So that was all cool to see, just him modifying the ship, getting rid of the yellow paint, and in the end, it's like the Razor Crest, like his armor, it's more or less just the polished surface, but there's a few tiny bits of yellow still on it to give it, I suppose, some color. But it is a Naboo starfighter restored, but with basically crazy engines on it. It's got like a supercharger thing up front, and it can go it has a hyperdrive and so on. So it's they're really getting across here that this is a custom starfighter, and he has to get used to how it handles differently and how quicker it is than the Razor Crest, and he ends up really liking it. We have the whole, Tatooine references, or where it's like, it's half referencing the whole Beggar's Canyon stuff that Luke does with the speeder. It's half pod racing, effectively, as he tests out the capacity of this. He then goes up into space and cruises past the transport that he arrived to Tatooine on. Fun reference back to the kid who was looking at him. He kind of waves at him. But the New Republic kind of police officers, the Rangers, I suppose, kind of pull him over and are just like, you're not meant to go that fast near a civilian transport. You also don't have the correct transponder. And he talks his way out of most of it, but then we get the older guy who recognizes him from before and more or less lets him away with it because he knows that the Mandalorian is like against the Empire and has kind of taken out remnants of the Empire. So he kind of just like, it's fine, we don't really need to fill out the paperwork here. He is not our problem, really. So we'll just let him away with this. He also demonstrates the sort of like turbo booster thing, which they say at the end are like sublight drives. So because the inexperienced guy thought that he went into hyperspace, but there's no sensors for that. So no, he just has a kind of afterburner type thing on the ship. So really, really cool. He lands back down, and this is when Fennec Shand arrives. She offers to pay him for being muscle on the mission, but he actually says he'll do it for free because of the help Boba gave to him in Season 2. So that's the Mandalorian on board. I think Pelly before did mention that the Pikes are becoming a bit of a nuisance around the area, so I suppose he has some context for who they're going up against, at least. But yeah, they've left the remaining 2 episodes to be, I suppose, quite a lot of action. Boba is fully recovered, and now we have the Mandalorian with a little bit of lightsaber training, a new ship. Of course, Boba has his ship back, so we've got the 2 Mandalorian armored characters pretty much ready to go, and this should be an incredible 2 episodes to end it off. The only thing they need to do, I think, is really deliver on some sort of really strong ending. Like, where is all of this leading to? What are we trying to accomplish with all of this? Is it literally just Boba is now the main power on Tatooine and we just end there? I think they need to just have some sort of plot element that makes it a bit more significant than that. Because like everything with the Mandalorian felt important because he's connected to so much. But with the Book of Boba Fett and Boba specifically, they've been very much grounding him to Tatooine and wanting to do this specific thing. And it doesn't feel like it's maybe the most exciting thing, even though there's probably quite a lot of action coming up. So that's my only kind of thing I'm still slightly worried about with the show, is just where is going to be that strong point that they end off on, and what's the uniqueness of this show that's not just sort of half of what the Mandalorian is. So this episode was incredible start to finish. Amazing to see the Mandalorian again, get all of these references to characters from that show, ships from like prequels, great references start to finish. So excited to see where they go from here, but that's basically been the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode, but that's been it. Thanks for watching, and bye.